everybody. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. If you saw my reaction video to the Attack on Titan Season 4 Part 3 trailer, I mentioned that I was going to be doing a special video where I review the entire series so far. I'm going to be doing a little something like that for The Mandalorian, seeing how I didn't review seasons 1 and 2 at all because I wasn't really doing much YouTube at that point. And seeing how season 3 has just premiered, I decided that I might as well do a video covering the first 2 seasons to, tell you what I thought about it all, and also catch some people up to speed when I review season 3, because I'm going to talk about it as if I reviewed the other 2 seasons. So that's why I'm doing this and why I'm doing it with Attack on Titan. So let's jump right into it. The Mandalorian is a Star Wars TV series that was released in 2019. It stars Pedro Pascal as Din Djarin, aka the Mandalorian, who travels through the galaxy looking for bounties to collect on certain people being looked after or looked for by different authorities in different planets, and ends up coming across a special creature known as the Child, which is basically a baby version of Yoda, little green creature with pointy ears. And Din decides to take care of the child, not wanting to give it up to the Empire, knowing that something is definitely up with the little pockets of the Empire that are left after the Death Star was blown up not too long ago. And after that, Din simply avoids the stormtroopers and anyone else looking for him and the child. With time, he starts making new friends and enemies, including a leader, sort of mayor type for a specific town, played by Carl Weathers, and then an ex-Imperial shock trooper played by Gina Carano, and many other people, most of them trying to kill him, including the sort of lead guy for the Imperial pocket that's after him and the child, Moff Gideon, played by Giancarlo Esposito, who is of course famous for Breaking Bad. Eventually they are cornered by Gideon and his stormtroopers, and they make a plan to sort of fight them off a little bit, or at least keep them at bay while the others escape through a secret hatch. This goes well first until some explosives are set off and some flamethrower stormtroopers are sent in to take care of business or whatever, and Din decides to stay behind while the others leave and take the child with them. The only one who stays behind with Din is a specific droid, I think an IG-8 unit or whatever, played by Taika Waititi, who stays behind and eventually decides to heal him, which is where Din has to take off his helmet to be healed, and the Mandalorians apparently have a specific rule, which is to not take off their helmets, or at least the sect of Mandalorians that Din is a part of. So the IG-8 droid heals him, and they're eventually able to get out and make it with the others. though the IG-8 droid eventually, helps him out and sacrifices itself when they're cornered in a tunnel. And after that, Din is able to pick up a backpack that's a sort of jetpack that he attaches to his armor, and he starts flying and trying to take out Moff Gideon's ship, which he's using to try and corner them and shoot some of them down. He's able to do that, and the day seems to be sort of saved for them all, and they sort of go on their merry way. But in a little final stainer at the end of the finale, we see Moff Gideon's TIE fighter ship, all kind of destroyed a little bit, from a crash, and something, pierces through the top of the ship, and Moff Gideon's able to cut his way out, and it turns out he has the Darksaber, which is basically what it is, a black lightsaber. And that's basically where it ends. Of course, I really enjoyed this Star Wars show already from Season 1. It's definitely some of the best Star Wars content to come out in a while. I liked the idea of the Mandalorian and the child, very much like the old samurai movie series, Lone Wolf and Cub, or even, ironically, when talking about Pedro Pascal, kind of like The Last of Us a little bit. But yeah, very strong first impression, strong characters, very good first season. I'm going to give Season 1 an 8 out of 10, a very good, strong first impression. In Season 2, Din Djarin continues his adventures with the child, still avoiding little bits of the Empire that are still left, also while collecting bounties, and sort of connecting more with, himself as a Mandalorian and the people that are also part of his culture. Over time, he finds more, people to meet, whether they're friends or enemies. Definitely plenty of enemies, of course. There's a bounty hunter who goes after him, but takes care of her, if you know what I mean, like shooting stuff. And he also crosses paths with like a whole crew of, I guess, bounty hunters, sort of, to try and break out someone from a Imperial prison ship. One of those bounty hunters is played by Bill Burr, who, funny enough, famously disliked Star Wars until, being in the show, and he softened up a little bit, I guess. It's a little funny. He's kind of a funny guy. And then eventually, famously, Din Djarin also comes across Boba Fett, who has apparently survived his supposed death in Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, which, of course, fans have been, waiting for a long time. Not me too much, but still pretty cool to see him. Still played by Tamara Morrison, who played Boba Fett in the special editions of the original trilogy, and also Jango Fett, who, of course, was Boba Fett's dad in Attack of the Clones, which is also very cool. Yeah, all of that eventually happens, and along those lines, Din also comes across a Jedi, Ahsoka Tano, who was the main character in Star Wars The Clone Wars, because Din wants to sort of, find a Jedi to help train the child and maybe understand him a little bit more, as he was talking about in the last season, finding the Jedi, who are actually enemies of the Mandalorians from many, many years ago. While not deciding to train him, Ahsoka does is, give little insights on the child to Din, sort of revealing little bits about him, including his real name, which is Grogu, as the child can't really, speak yet, I guess, because even though it's basically a baby, Grogu is actually 50 years old, as far as I can tell, because Yoda in the original trilogy is supposed to be hundreds of years old before he eventually dies, so that's definitely interesting. Very interesting. So, after that point, Din and Grogu just leave after getting some insights from Ahsoka, and they start to kind of, go back around and talk to old friends, specifically Carl Weathers and Gina Carano. And the past obviously comes back to bite them, as Moff Gideon is still trying to, find the child and use whatever, power he might have and get revenge on Din. So he sets a trap, sort of, while Din takes Grogu to a specific sort of Jedi ritual center on a specific planet, where Din also comes across Boba Fett, but is able to, make peace with him and give him his armor back, just as the Empire is, on their tail. And Boba helps Din fight them off while trying to let Grogu sort of meditate and finish the process, whatever is going on there. Unfortunately, the Empire is able to kidnap Grogu and take him to Moff Gideon's Star Destroyer or whatever. And of course, Din now has to work with Boba Fett and the bounty hunter who went after him before, but turns out to still be alive and working with Boba, all trying to get on that ship and save Grogu alongside Carl Weathers and Gina Carano. So they come up with this plan, and eventually get on and start doing a bit of fighting. Din eventually has a one-on-one duel with Moff Gideon, with Din having having a spear made out of Beskar, which is a metal that's basically lightsaber proof, and Gideon has the dark saber, which isn't too special other than being shaped differently, but it's still pretty cool. And they have a big fight. Din is able to overpower him, but that's kind of just it. And they hold him captive and are able to save Grogu. Unfortunately, there's a bunch of cybernetic stormtroopers set off, trying to break down the doors in the, holding area or whatever, to take care of Din and the others. But some mysterious figure flies their ship into the Star Destroyer and makes their way to that hallway where the cyber troopers or whatever are trying to get in. And the person turns out to have a lightsaber and is just cutting right through them with ease. And when the doors open, it turns out to be Luke Skywalker, from the original trilogy. Obviously CGI'd because, that movie was like 30 years old, 30 years ago, When Luke, finishes taking out, the cyber troopers, he talks to Din and the others, revealing, who he is, of course, and that he's wanting to take Grogu in and train him in the ways of the Force. And of course, Din actually has a hard time letting go after all, having become quite attached to him, taking care of the child, but gives in, takes off his helmet, and gives one last goodbye to Grogu, which of course is paired with some fantastic Pedro Pascal acting. Not quite on the level of Last of Us, but still damn good. So of course, like Luke Skywalker takes Grogu away, Moff Gideon is, I guess, sent to a rebel prison or whatever. Yeah, whatever happens there. And Din goes on his merry way. And then there's also Jesus, I forgot to mention. There's also another character from the Clone Wars who showed up quite a bit earlier to help them as well, and has a connection to the Darksaber and kind of wants that, but Din basically won it via the traditional, way of combat, which is how you get the Darksaber. You gotta beat someone in combat to get it. So that's obviously gonna play a part in Season 3. Completely forgot to mention that, sorry. And that is Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Also really good. I'd say just as good. So, yeah. I'm gonna give Season 2 a 9 out of 10. Got some extra good stuff, so I thought I'd give it that over an 8. Well, I hope you enjoyed this sort of review, full review of Mandalorian Seasons 1 and 2 to catch you guys up and sort of catch myself up with everything leading up to Season 3. I'm pretty excited to talk about it. It'll be very interesting. Just realized, there's actually stuff in another show, The Book of Boba Fett, that actually builds up Season 3 a bit as well. So I feel like I'm probably just going to mention it in the Season 3 review when I get to that, and just, mention it's from Book of Boba Fett, what happened in between, because while I could do a Book of Boba Fett review as well, I feel like I'm just going to wait to do a Season 1 review for that, if a Season 2 actually happens. But in the meantime, hope you enjoy this, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.